Hello, and thank you for joining us for another Sunday afternoon broadcast. We do this every Sunday afternoon at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So please share, comment, like, and subscribe so the channel can grow and this educational content can be shared with many more people. Really, I would love to have you be a part of our Sev Talks Money family. So again, welcome to those who are watching for the first time and welcome back to those who are returning. Today we're wrapping up the student loan series that we started in the month of August. And I also want to share one additional side hustle that I didn't share last week when I was sharing my side hustles that helped me pay down my student loans. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen because I want to go through some information that I think will help those who are wondering how does the PSLF program work? How does the public service loan forgiveness work? And why am I hearing stories about people who apply and their application is getting turned down? So I'm going to share some information as to why that could possibly be if my screen will open up. Let's do this again. There you go, share. All right, so I hope you can see my screen. And I want to start by talking about the payments, how the payments work. And let me take myself out of the screen so it's bigger. The Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program requires 120 monthly payments. And I am emphasizing monthly because I'm going to explain some more about why that is important. It requires 120 monthly payments. Now, here are some things to understand about that. The payments do not have to be consecutive, meaning that if you qualify for the program for 5 years and you're making those payments, and then for the next 5 years you're not qualified because of some things I'm going to share later, and you're continuing to pay, those payments might not qualify, but you're still paying your student loans. And then another 5 years go by and you get back into the program, the payments continue to be counted. So I will share with you under what circumstances you may be making your payments, and the payments are not going towards the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. All right, so 120 payments are required. As I said before, they don't have to be consecutive. You have to pay the full amount when required, meaning you cannot pay half for that month. It has to be the entire amount that's due for the loan payment. The payments cannot be late, at least no later than 15 days. So if you're making payments and you're on the 119th payment and the 120th, you are late more than 15 days, that payment will not count. The payments will only count when you are employed by a qualifying employer, and I will explain who qualifies as employer under this program. The other thing you need to know is the payments only count when they're required, meaning if you are in school and you're making payments on your loan, those payments do not count towards the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. If you're in a grace period, deferment, forbearance, those payments do not count toward the PSLF. Now, there's a special concession with COVID, and I will talk about that in a little bit. But again, if you're in school, grace period, deferment, forbearance, any payments made during that time is not counted because payments are only counted when they are required to be made. And under those conditions, payments are not required. Another thing to consider is you cannot make lump sum payments except if you are with AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, or Department of Defense. There are special programs for AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, and Department of Defense where you can make a lump sum payment that will be distributed over a number of months. I'm not going to go into details with those. You can go to the studentaid.gov website, or you can, the link is in the description of this video. If you want to talk to me one-on-one, we can talk about that. But essentially, those are around payments. Those are the qualifiers around payments that will qualify for the PSLF program. And if you have questions while I'm going through this, you can drop them in the chat and I will answer them if they're not answered at the end of this program. Okay, only payments made on the specific repayment plans qualify. And those payment plan has to include direct loans. So if you have loans that are not direct loans, those repayment plans cannot be part of the public service loan forgiveness program. So if you're paying on those payments will not count. The payments that the program repayment plans that count are the standard, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about the standard repayment plan, the repayee or revised pay as you earn, income-based, and income contingent. Those plans, and I went over that in detail on week 2 of this series. So you can go ahead and grab that video, week 2, that explain all of these repayment plans. But the standard repayment plan, repayee, income-based, income contingent, those plans qualify because they're income-driven. Now, for the standard, it would not make sense for you to use the standard repayment plan for the public service loan forgiveness program. And here's why. The standard program, you're paying for 10 years. At the end of 10 years, your balance is zero. There's nothing to forgive. So if you're wanting to qualify for the PSLF, that is not the repayment plan that you want to use. You want to use one of the extended payment plans because then you have balance at the end that they will be able to forgive. One thing to remember about the PSLF program is there is no tax on the forgiven amounts. Now, again, week 2, go grab that video. I talked about programs where your loan balance will be forgiven after a certain number of years, but you have to pay tax on that. So I spoke in detail about that in week 2. So again, these are the repayment programs that you can if you qualify for these, the payments made under these plans can be applied to the PSLF. All right, so let's go to the next section where we're talking about who the employers are that will qualify you for the student loan, the public service loan repayment, loan forgiveness program. You must be employed by the federal, state, or local government. Or you can be employed by a tribal government. You must be employed by a nonprofit. And I put 501c3 because that is important. Not every nonprofit works with this program. So if you are employed by a nonprofit that is not a 501c3 and you're thinking that you will be able to qualify for the PSLF, more than likely you will not. And of course, AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, if you are a full-time volunteer with them, your payments that you're making while you're employed by them can be considered as part of the PSLF program. All right, the other caveat is you must be employed full-time. So if you are employed by, say, the federal government and your full-time hours based on your employer is 25 hours, that does not qualify you. It has to be the greater of the full-time hours that your employer says considers full-time or 30 hours. But the beauty is you can work 2 jobs and get that 30 hours. So let's say you work for the federal government and your full-time hours considered 25 hours, and you work 5 hours for a nonprofit 501c3, you have your 30 hours. So payments made during that time when you have those 30 hours will be considered for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Now, when you're applying for the program, at the time you're applying, you must have made the 120 payments. And your employer must be one of the employers that I mentioned before. If, say, you were working for, Department of Defense, and then now you're working and you've made your payments, and now you're working for AT&T, which is a public company, and you're trying to apply, your application will more than likely be rejected, because you must be working at the time of applying. You must be working for one of those employers that I mentioned before. Now, the application that you're using, which is on the studentaid.gov website, is Public Service Loan Forgiveness Application for Forgiveness. Now, here is where I think a lot of people make mistakes, where at the end of making their payments, they're applying for to be forgiven, and they find out that half their payments or some of their payments did not qualify. It's because they did not certify on an annual basis. You must certify annually. And what that does is it lets them know where you're working and if that employer qualifies, and if the payments that you're making qualifies, and if the payment plan that you're using qualifies. So you want to make sure that you're doing that annual recertification, because when you do that, it's only helping you. Don't wait until you've made what you think is 120 payments and then try to apply. The annual certification will catch any errors in your process, and you can correct those before you get to the end of the payment period and wanting to apply. Now, something else I didn't mention, or I don't think I did, is the standard repayment plan. You can consolidate your direct loans. However, if you consolidate your direct loans, those loans, no loan repayment plan, that direct consolidation repayment plan no longer qualifies for the PSLF. So if you're going to do any consolidation, be very careful. Another thing is, if you consolidate your loan, and let's say you made 100 payments that qualified, and then you consolidate your loan, guess what? It wipes out all of that old history. Those old PSLF payments that qualified for the PSLF no longer qualifies. So now you have to start over. So, these are things that we need to know, because we see things in the news. Oh, I made my payments, I didn't qualify, but you didn't follow the rules, and that's why you didn't qualify. So be very careful when you're considering consolidation. If you're in one of those organizations and you've been making your payments and you're under one of the repayment plans that qualify, be very careful about what you think about consolidation, because your consolidation may put you out of the running to qualify for the PSLF forgiveness. All right, so let's go back down to COVID. Listen very careful on this one, okay? With what President Trump just signed, payments under COVID, if you're in the PSLF program, you do not have to make any payments for them to count. So those 120 payments that I mentioned before, 10 of those payments, because if you think about it, from March to December, so that's what, 10 payments? You are getting credit for 10 payments that you don't have to pay. You don't have to make any payments from March to December, and you are getting credit towards the 120 payments. So here's my suggestion to you. Take that money and pay it on. If you have non-direct student loans, take that money and pay those down. Pay it on your credit card. Save, put it towards your emergency fund. Put it towards your car payment. Put it towards other things, because it's like you're getting the benefit of not paying, so you can use that money for something else. So it's not like you didn't pay during the 10 months and then now you have to tack on 10 payments. No, you are getting those 10 payments free. So you can take your money and you can use it to do other things. And again, I talked about the direct consolidation loans, where prior payments toward the PSLF no longer count when you consolidate your loan. So these are some of the things why people may apply and they don't get they get rejected, and they're thinking they met all the requirements. But you have to be aware of the nuances that will possibly stop you from getting approved for these loans. I mean, for the program. Now, if you are doing auto debit, if you're set up for auto debit, of course, auto debit has stopped because of all the CARES Act and all of what was written or what was signed into law for this period. So if you have auto debit, it's going to stop. But if you want to continue auto debit, you have two options. You can call your student loan servicer and you can say, hey, I want to continue the auto debit. So, I want to opt out of forbearance, which I don't recommend. But, as I said, this is just, I'm giving you what I think. Unless you are my client, I can't give you information specific to your situation. But you can opt out of forbearance if you want and let the auto debit continue, or you can remain in forbearance and make manual payments. Okay, and again, I talked about there's no tax to attach to any amount that is forgiven in the PSLF program. So I'm hoping that's been helpful. And now I want to share the additional thing that I didn't share last week when I talked about the different things that I use, the different side hustles that I use to help to pay down my student loans. One of the ones I did not mention was focus group. I use focus group, market research, in-person market research, on-phone market research, panel discussions. I did those, and they're pretty lucrative. I think the highest I got paid, I think, was $200 for, I think, maybe 2 hours. So they're pretty lucrative if you can find them. So that's another way for you to pay down your student loans fast. I did attach the comment to the video last week, but some people might not see it. So I wanted to share it, even though today's video is about the PSLF. So that is all I have to share today, and I hope it was very helpful. I do not see any questions, so I am assuming that no one has questions. But if you have questions after I've gone off the air, please drop those questions in the comment section or contact me through one of my social media contacts, which is in the discussion of the video, the description of the video. Contact me, share your question, and what I will do is I will post the question and answer under this video because other people may have the same question. So again, thank you so much for joining us every Sunday afternoon at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Please share with your family and friends. I'm sure you know somebody who has student loans who would like to consider maybe the loan forgiveness program, that don't know what the details are around that. Share with them so that they can be educated, and hopefully this will benefit them. So again, the links are in the description of this video. If you want to work with me on any personal financial issues, you can contact me through those links. I have some calculators in there for loans, for student loans, for the avalanche method, which I talked about that I was going to share that. The avalanche method is starting with the amounts with the highest interest rate. The snowball is starting with the lower amount. So it's like you're starting with a lower amount, and as you go along, it's rolling like a snowball. And then, of course, the sprinkle method, which is what I use, is I start some of them with avalanche because they're small and I want to pay those, get rid of those. The snowball, sorry, start with that. Want to pay, get rid of it, and then I look at the next one. If the amounts are close in to each other, I start with the one next that has the highest interest rate, which is the avalanche method. So again, I hope this was helpful, and thank you so much for joining me here on Sev Talks Money with Dr. Severin Bryan. Have a wonderful afternoon.